Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning and welcome to the world's greatest radio program on the greatest station in the world, and that is TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. You are now, right now, in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, the greatest program in radio history, and you have the opportunity to listen to it by way of TalkTainmentRadio.com. And this is the way that radio should be heard. On the line with me today is Neely Fuller Jr. He is live from Washington, D.C. We have a lot of show to cover, and we don't want to mess around with it. But listen, you can call in at 1-877-932-9766. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby. That's B-O-B-B-Y at gmail.com. You can also do this. If you want to see and hear the show live, you can go to the YouTube channel, type in the word Talktainment, hit the space bar, type in the word radio, scroll down to Talktainment number 2, live on YouTube, and watch the live broadcast of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and yours truly, Mr. Bobby. And if you miss any of this, you can also go to Facebook.com/Talktainment, and you can hear the entire program, and a lot of folks do that. Let's see here. Let's start off this way. Today is the commemoration of the murder of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. some 50 years ago. And Mr. Fuller, good morning. And by the way, good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Being that today is the anniversary, I don't even know if that is the appropriate word to say, but concerning the murder of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., do you have any thoughts on that, recollections, or anything that you would like to bring to light this morning?
I was thinking that at least down through the years, since there are many, many streets that are named after Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard, Martin Luther King Drive, Martin Luther King cul-de-sac, whatever you might have, that all of these places should be havens for any black person who has problems. I mean, as a start, just in commemoration of Martin Luther King. And it should be a definite place, even in some of the worst sides of town, you might say. If there's a Martin Luther King Boulevard, somebody who is driving through that town looking for a place to stay or something like that, say, well, look at your GPS and see if there's a Martin Luther King Avenue or Martin Luther King Street anywhere in this place. And wherever that place is, we know that when you go there, everything is going to be peaceful, everything is going to be nice and clean and neat, and there are going to be hotels there. There's going to be shops there. It's very welcoming. Nobody ever does anything harmful to anybody on Martin Luther King Avenue. I mean, it just doesn't happen. I mean, it's like people just don't do that. I mean, people who are up to something or think that they might be up to something that they shouldn't be doing, well, they're not going to do it on Martin Luther King Avenue. We should at least have that in all these years. 50 years gone by. But you go to a Martin Luther King Avenue in any town, and you better watch out. Watch out for whom? Other black people doing things harmful. I mean, in many places, I don't know about in all, I can't say in all, but in many places where you have a Martin Luther King Boulevard, Martin Luther King Avenue, it's dangerous at night. 3 o'clock in the morning. You're not going to be out there just walking around like you're on a picnic. I mean, you'll get robbed and killed by another black person. Truth be told, 50 years after Martin Luther King was killed, allegedly by the white supremacists. And according to the code, definitely by the white supremacists. And those are the thoughts that I was having this morning, and I've been having them ever since the inauguration of the first Martin Luther King streets. I was asking, what kind of streets are these going to be? What are they going to be known for, other than just having Martin Luther King's name? They're just going to be just like any other street anywhere in town. I mean, George Washington Avenue, Thomas Jefferson Boulevard. I mean, well, these are people who are slave owners, so you would expect ugly things to happen. I mean, on those streets. But nothing ever, Easy Street, Martin Luther King Avenue, Martin Luther King Boulevard. I mean, everybody greets you happily. Everybody, just changes their entire mood on a Sunday afternoon, strolling down Martin Luther King Boulevard, Martin Luther King Avenue. I mean, nothing ever happens on this street. Nobody robs anybody. Nobody steals anybody. You can get out of your car and leave your cameras on the seat on Martin Luther King Avenue, because people just, they just don't do that. They might do it in other parts of town, not on Martin Luther King Boulevard. I mean, that could be an idea that we could spread right now, here 50 years later. Say that let's just try to have something in the hood, you might say, that has some type of real significance, other than just labels. We got more labels than you can shake a stick at. I mean, all sorts of slogans about black pride and all like this, and absolutely nothing to show for it.
Okay. All righty. Appreciate your thoughts. 1-877-932-9766 is your number that you can call, and we have a call now. So let's take that. What line are we on? Line number one? Okay, line number one, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Fuller. Thank you for what you do. I was going to mention two people who I know are helping, doing similar work that you're doing, but I don't want to mention their names because I don't want to, I just don't want to reveal their names and put them out there, even though they are out there. So people use sources like YouTube and just search for people like that, leaders out there. There's a lot of leaders out there doing stuff. And unless I speak to them personally, I won't reveal their names. Unless I speak to them personally and get permission on what they'd like me to discuss, I won't reveal their names. There is something that I want to discuss, though, that I don't think people are looking at. Okay, and I hope you don't mind me just saying it rather than asking a question. Is that all right?
Really, it's a question for me. Mr. Fuller will answer your question if you have one.
I'll ask a question. I'll phrase it as a question. That's fine. How do you think well, first I'll just give you something from me. When I was a student at Columbia in 1990. We had learned then about cloning, okay, biogenetic stuff like that, right? Whatever that is, okay. And now there's hybrid animals out there, okay, in Japan or wherever the chemicals that caused the hybrid stuff to take place, okay, cross between humans and animals, right? So that would be like laboratory stuff, rather, right? And I heard that they've been cloning people since 1945. Now, with that said, in light of what Dick Gregory said, that there are two Trumps, and I have to get as controversial as possible. The reason being, people do watch a lot of TV and are influenced by the messages that they get from TV. Okay, the subliminal messages that come from thinking that something is real when it's not.
Excuse me, sir. I don't mean to cut you off, but then again, I do. You really need to go ahead and ask Mr. Fuller a question. We appreciate the background of your information.
How do you feel?
But go ahead and ask a question.
I'll ask the question. How do you feel about if the Trump that we see on TV is a clone? How do you think that affects the public if a lot of people who talk about it are, watching that? Okay,
Mr. Fuller?
If I understand the question, he's saying that cloning can cause confusion, and it can. So if people are cloning people already, have been doing it for some time maybe, or might be doing it in the future, how does that fit into the race issue? What do you do about it? Well, you do about it what you should always do about anything. Try to ensure that justice prevails. Any creatures that's moving around on this planet, try to guarantee, sort it all out any way that you can. I mean, if they're cloning some white people or cloning some black people, and the white supremacists are behind it and up to some type of mischief in doing so, you just try to figure out what they're doing, like you should figure out what they're doing anytime they're doing anything. Because if they're practicing racism, just another extension of racism, through something called cloning, you try to figure out how they're doing that and what effect that has, and last but not least, whether or not it helps to produce justice. Because if it doesn't help to produce justice, then that's when you get on it. Sort it all out and try to figure out how you're going to oppose it.
Okay.
If it helps to produce justice and correctness and helps nature and keeps things in balance, I mean, you study that. Just like you study anything. Everything has got to be constructive and non-constructive.
Yes. Okay. All righty. Going to the Gmails. This is the name of this program today is called Follow Up, and what it is Mr. Fuller is going to follow up and answer some Gmails and maybe some questions that you may have. This comes from Nick, and he says this: Mr. Fuller, I wanted to follow up on something you said last week's program about black men thinking that they can become white or improve themselves by pursuing white men sexually. Can you have, Mr. Fuller, can you expound on this? What do you think about the fact that some white gay men claim that they can't be racist because they themselves are victims of oppression? This is from Nick from Richmond.
In answer to that last question, flat out, they're racist suspects. Why? Because they're able to be racist. And as long as you have racism, just them making that kind of statement doesn't mean anything. Who are they making the statement to? The prisoners of war? The non-white people of this planet? You just don't make a statement and then sit down and say, hey, that's it. No. You got to show evidence that what you're saying means something. The code says any person who is classified as white, who is able to be a racist, should be suspected of being one until when? until racism ends. So if a white so-called gay person says, I'm not a racist because I'm being persecuted too, well, the response, the codified response to that is, I'm not paying any attention to that, sir. Out of all due regard, I'm duty bound to suspect you of being one until racism ends. Now, the way that you prove you're not a racist is end racism. Mm-hmm. Don't tell me that you're not a racist and then just go on with your everyday pursuits. That doesn't work. Not in this prison, this world prison called the system of white supremacy. We can't dance around that. And just making statements, people have made those kind of statements, everybody, who, me? I'm not a racist. Or they put it in a greater frame than that. I'm not a bad person. I'm a nice person. I'm one of the nicest people that ever showed up on the planet. I mean, anybody and everybody can say that. Hasn't changed the reality so far. Got all kinds of problems to solve. Racism is the biggest one.
It's the biggest one, yes. Okay. TalkTimRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. And here's one that I will share with you. It is my second program, which is called Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby, which premieres every other Tuesday here on TalkTimRadio.com. Now, last night we were supposed to have a radio program, but we had, because of inclement weather here, tornadoes and such like, the program that was heard was not a live program, but it was a previous program. So we have rescheduled the program that we were going to have on the 3rd, which was yesterday, for the 17th, in which we will have the University of Minnesota's assistant women's basketball coach, Nikki Lowry Dawkins. She will be our guest in the second segment, which we call Tell Me Something Good, after Chaka Khan leads us through. But all the information and all the latest in sports news can be heard on Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby, premiering the 17th of April from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time here on TalkTeamRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. As a matter of fact, you can go to the TalkTeamRadio.com homepage, and you can get news and information on all the programming that we have here on the world's greatest radio station. And you can make your selection. And I say that because I received a couple of calls. One gentleman in greater confinement gave me a call. How about that? And was asking about not only this program, Mr. Fuller's program, but also about Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby. But all these programs are exclusive to TalkTeamRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. Now, back to this program. This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And if you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766. You can Gmail me, as Roop Dog just did. 7, the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY at gmail.com. You can also do this. You can also watch the live program by going to YouTube, type in the word Talktainment, hit the space bar and type in the word radio, and then scroll down to it to Talktainment number 2 live on YouTube, and watch the live broadcast. And while you're there, hit the like and the subscribe button, and you'll be glad you did. And if you miss all of that, or today's programming for any reason, you can go to Facebook.com/Talktainment, and you can hear the entire program. Okay, Mr. Fuller, let's go to another Gmail. Let's see here. This comes from Roop Dog. He says this, Mr. Fuller, thank you. I'm still learning. Mr. Fuller, I think if Stephen Clark, the most recent known attack by suspected race stories, had applied some of these codes, not just the don't fuss, don't fight, don't flee, but not put himself allegedly in position to flee. As Mr. Fuller reminds, application of his suggested instructions is not a guarantee that you will not be shot, but it can help to minimize the chances. Mr. Fuller, what do you think of this?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I think that's, the person repeated exactly what I said, or approximately, and that is, you don't fuss, you don't fight, you don't flee. You're being what they call pulled over under suspicion of something, tail light out or whatever. I mean, suspicion of robbery, and you're running. I mean, you get pulled over. I mean, when you see those flashing lights, you pull over. That's the procedure. Even if they're not chasing you, you pull over. You pull over. You don't step on the gas and take off. I mean, even if you haven't done anything or have done something that you shouldn't have done, that the laws of wherever you are say that you should not have done, or you're suspected of having done something maybe that you shouldn't have, that you didn't do, or if you did it, either way, don't fuss, don't fight, don't flee. And the person might walk right up to you in anger, because the person who is chasing you might be angry, or might have decided, well, they're just going to kill a black person today, and you're it. And so they just walk up, pull out their service weapon, as they call it, and shoot you in the head. You're on a lonely highway, 3 o'clock in the morning, nobody around. The way that the cars are angled, if it's, on this highway, the officer, who may or may not be a racist, but just decides that he's angry and he's going to kill somebody, or she, and looks at the angles of the vehicles, no camera. The way the vehicles are parked, the camera doesn't capture what's going to happen. You just hear some sounds, and the officer can always say, gun. Okay, that's the standard procedure. I mean, particularly if it's a race soldier.
Yeah, this has happened.
Oh, sure. I've said for years. I mean, that's one of the standard things. You got anything in your hand, you get rid of it quick. You get rid of it quick. And put your hands where, keep your hands where that officer can see them. Always be conscious of where your hands are. Nowhere near that glove compartment. Nowhere down between the seats.
But Philander Smith got shot, and he had his hands where they could see him. He still got shot.
Yes. And why? As a prisoner of war in the system of white supremacy, expect to get shot standing upright at attention in broad daylight with 40 people standing right around a few feet away watching it. Expect to be executed.
Wow.
You should expect that if you're black. Expect you're a prisoner of war. You can execute a prisoner of war. I mean, depending on the type of war that it is and the type of battlefront that it is, all down through history.
Yes, sir.
I mean, one soldier just walks up to another one, a captured soldier, and lines them all up and systematically shoots them all in the back of the head.
I have seen that. I have seen that.
Yes, I mean, and it has actually happened.
Yes.
On many a battlefront.
Yes.
I mean, it happened in so-called World War II and whatnot. There was some, you're supposed to, when you capture soldiers, they've given up, they put their hands up and all like that. So, but there are some instances, and I read of one, I think, that's somewhere in the South Pacific, a bunch of soldiers were captured, Japanese soldiers, and the people who captured them, it was about maybe 4 or 5 soldiers, and captured maybe about 12 or 15 Japanese soldiers,
yes,
which was rare at that time. Those Japanese soldiers usually didn't surrender.
Right.
But they were standing there, and it started getting dark. So the soldiers who had captured them they discussed it among themselves, say, what are we going to do with them? Because if it gets dark, they'll take off in all directions. We can't watch them here in the dark. I mean, it really gets dark here. And we have no facilities, say, how are we going to watch them? We can't watch them in the dark. Say, we can't watch them. And the sun is going down, and it's going to be dark in just a very short while. So they just lined them up and shot them, killed them. Now, a black person on the streets of anywhere, you're pulled over by some white people who are carrying guns, expect to die. Get that in your head. I'm saying that. I mean, I'm serious about that. This is war. You're already in captivity. And so, therefore, you should look at yourself as a, in the system of white supremacy. That's the system you're in. You're not in any la-la land. You're not in Oz. You're not in what we call America. No. You are a black person in the system of white supremacy. Expect to be killed at any time and nothing be done about it, except the usual ceremonies that people have, balloons, teddy bears, candles, high fives and hugs in front of a funeral home. Look forward to it, because this is where you are. Not saying that you should like it. I'm just saying that this is where you are.
Yes, sir.
Because the evidence has shown this is where you are on this planet in 2018. If you're classified as non-white, you see it over and over and over again. Demonstrations, parades, and whatnot. You can do that. The code says that you can do it, but it's going to happen again even while you're having the parade or the march or saying Black Lives Matter. It's happening, just maybe a couple of blocks away all over again. So just get ready to march down there too, because it's going to continue to happen.
Until?
Somewhere on the planet, until the end of racism. That's what you got to go after. Up until then, consider yourself a prisoner of war, and the sun is going down.
Wow.
And they don't have time to watch you, so it's best to get rid of you while they can.
Yes, sir. Ed, do I have time to take this question or after the break? After the break? Okay. All right. We're going to have a break here in a couple of moments here. Mr. Fuller, have you heard of, so hang on, caller. Have you heard of Oregon's lash laws?
Have I heard of what?
Or the state of Oregon's lash laws. From basically from 1844 to 1859, they were basically black exclusion laws. Any black man who refused to leave the state of Oregon would be subject to a lashing, a provision that was known by and built in by a man by the name of Peter Burnett's lash law. He said they had to get out of the state of Oregon. They had some slave owners up there, and once they were freed, they had to get out of the state of Oregon, making Oregon and still is the whitest state in the union. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't heard that.
Okay, we'll have a further discussion on that. Anyway, let's do this. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on 94.1 WGRN. Podcasts are available. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to have this phone caller that's on. Further discussion on the Oregon's lash laws and more coming up next.
For the best home fragrance and beauty products, shop Ash Kickin' online.
That
ASHKICKIN.
Made with 100% natural quality ingredients and handcrafted with your family in mind, Ash Kickin' products are better than those other guys. Ash Kickin' candles, incense, body butter, face moisturizer, and hair moisturizer are priced just right, and you can get yours at 10% off with coupon code TALK17. Support this 100% black-owned business and get your home and body smelling and feeling all right.
That's ASHKICKIN.
Shop Ash Kickin' online at www.ashkickin.com.
Are you ready for a high school that allows you to work at a place that is right for you? Are you ready to earn a certification in healthcare, business, or manufacturing while achieving your high school diploma? Then you are ready for Life Skills High School, a free public school option for high school students 16 to 21 years old. Learn more about your free high school educational options at lifeskillshs.org or call them at 1-800-888-7992. Life Skills High School, education that fits your life.
Robe is an intriguing, riveting, mysterious novel written on forgiveness by Renee Smith. Order your copy today at Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. That's The Robe by Renee Smith.
Every year, June marks the beginning of two busy seasons, summer and wedding season. If you are legally changing your name, you need to apply for a replacement Social Security card reflecting your new name. This is easier to fix now when you first change your name than years from now when you retire. So go to our website at www.socialsecurity.gov/SS number or call us at 1-800-772-1213, TTY 1-800-325-0778 to find out what specific documents you need to change your name and apply for a replacement card.
If you or someone you know is abusing drugs and or alcohol and want to stop the abuse, contact APDS at 1409 East Livingston Avenue. Office hours are 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily and 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday. APDS is certified by the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and primarily funded through the Adam H. Board. Fees are based on your income and Medicaid is always accepted. For more information, call 614-253-4448.
This is Al Edmondson, owner of a Cutter Brother Rest Barbershop. I'm calling on all barbers and beauticians. It's time for us to unite as one. We can serve our communities better together. Join the Ohio Black Barber Beauty Network. For more information, visit www.obbn.org or call 614-427-3226 to get more information. Be the change that you want to see in your community. Join our network.
I've got the water, energy bars, and camera. I think we're set for the hike.
Almost. We need to protect our skin. Don't forget your wide-brimmed hat and sunscreen.
All right. I've got the hat. I've got SPF 30. Will that work?
Yeah, anything 15 or higher is good. Just make sure it says broad spectrum.
Great. Got it. I am not getting burned again. Let's go.
Learn more at cdc.gov/cancer.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTimidRadio.com.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Go ahead. Make my day.
You got the power.
Alrighty. TalkTimid.com. We go where you go. All you have to do is download the TalkTimidRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet, and that's radio the way it should be heard. This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I call it the greatest radio program in radio history on the greatest station that you could listen to it on, which is TalkTimidRadio.com. And I don't say that tongue-in-cheek because it is a privilege to not only do this, but to be able to have Mr. Fuller disperse information or suggestions, and then you call in like we have a caller that I'm getting ready to acknowledge now. It's a blessed privilege to be able to do that. So don't take that lightly. For other callers, 1-877-932-9766. Others, Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com. If you want to look at this live, you can by going to the YouTube channel, type in the word Talktainment, hit the space bar and type in the word radio, then scroll down to Talktainment #2 live on YouTube, and you're there. While you're there, please hit the subscribe button and the like button, and we'll be very happy that you did that. Let's go to the phone lines here. Line number one. Line number one, you are on with Mr. Fuller, and you can be heard. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby. How are you doing? This Eric calling from Cleveland.
Okay.
My question for Mr. Fuller this morning is actually a follow-up or something I believe you said last week. I wanted to ask Mr. Fuller, he stated last week that he was afraid to stand up and march back during the bus boycotts because he was afraid of being hurt or injured. I would like to ask Mr. Fuller, does he still feel that way now? Oh. And the reason why I'm asking that question is recently he just made comments about expecting to be executed at any time in the prison of white supremacy. And dealing with logic and watching movies as Mr. Fuller does, even prisoners of war, when they know they're about to be executed, at some point in time, they fight back. So the fact that Mr. Fuller never really suggests to fight back, I want to ask him, is he still afraid to stand up against and speak against the white supremacists if they're being injured? Okay,
Mr. Fuller?
No, well, I speak against the white supremacists every week, and I do it every day, because they allow me to do that. They're not paying any attention to me. They pay attention to the effect I might have, and the effect that all of the black people throughout the world who are speaking against. There are millions of black people who speak against racism, speak against injustice. But the white supremacists, they pay attention to the effect that a person has. They don't care what you say. They don't care what I say. What they do is say, is it hurting our business? Okay. See, it's like any gangster operation. Gangsters, people blow off steam, people demonstrate, people say anything they want to say. The white supremacists allow that. Speak up. Tell me how you feel. They'll say that, and they mean it. Tell me all about how anguished you are, how mad you are about this situation. Write books about it. Get on the radio, and they'll listen. And they look and see that nothing changes, that nobody does anything any different from what they usually do. So they say, so what? Let him talk. They don't care.
So are you suggesting?
But if they decide to kill you, they don't really need a reason. They'll just kill you.
So protesting is
because
not
they know that.
effective,
Yes, because they, if they just decide to kill you and you can be standing there not saying a word, you never said a word against racism. You never said a word against anybody. You say that you're a good person and you just want to get along with everybody and all like that. In the system of white supremacy, you're a prisoner of war. And the white supremacists will just kill you just because you're here. Mm-hmm. All right?
Yeah.
Look at it that way. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they want to kill you, they just kill you. Why? Mm-hmm. Because nobody's big enough and bad enough to do anything about it, and the record shows it.
Yes. All right, my brother. Thank you for your call from Cleveland.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. From Cleveland, Ohio. I know I was up there in Cleveland, Ohio during the 1967 Huff riots, and the one thing that amazed me is how the National Guard was able to come in, the way that the freeways were constructed. They can just come in with their tanks and do what they did. They surrounded us, and I guess at that young age I wasn't afraid of being killed, but maybe I wasn't aware that this was war and that I could die if they so choose to do so. But it was something to be around in there. Okay, going back to the Oregon lash laws, just a brief statement. By the way, this information was found on Wikipedia, but there are other sources of information you could access if you would like, and you may want to do that, because I think there's a saying that if you don't understand history, you may be doomed to repeat it, or something to that effect. But one of the things that this did was the effect was to legalize slavery in Oregon for 3 years. Moreover, once freed, a former slave could not stay in Oregon. A male would have to leave after 2 years, a female after 3. Any free blacks who refused to leave would be subject to lashing, a provision that was known as the Peter Burnett's Lash Law. Burnett, who later became the first U.S. governor of California, gave this explanation for his support of the law. So even back then and even before, black people have been mistreated for any reason, just because they wanted to do it, and they did. Mr. Fuller, could you make a comment, or would you make a comment about this week, the death of Winnie Mandela? I think she was 81 years old, the wife of the now deceased Nelson Mandela.
The death of Winnie Mandela?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I just heard about it the other day. I haven't gotten all the details, but I understand that she just died, and she was the backbone for a long time, many people say, of the movement against racism in South Africa.
Yes.
While her husband, if you can call it that, I mean, he was incarcerated. I mean, most of the time that they were supposed to be, quote, unquote, married. So she carried on in his absence, which, according to the code, is what everybody's supposed to do regardless of circumstances. You're born into the world where you have all kinds of problems. The race problem, according to what I've written in the code book, is the biggest problem on the planet, and that you can't solve any major problem without solving that problem first. You might as well just give up on all the other problems between people. Now, you can solve certain scientific problems. That's proven all the time by the inventors and the scientists. But when you start talking about social science, no social science has come up with a formula that has actually solved the race problem. Lots of people have come up with concepts. I have a concept. People have come up with theories. People have come up with all kinds of Bible verses and verses from other religious books and whatnot, but nothing that has actually taken root and really solved the race problem.
Yes.
There's the evidence. We still have it. That's the evidence.
Yes.
So nobody can claim that they have the solution to the race problem. So Miss Winnie Mandela was just trying to do what all people should be doing, white and non-white, trying to solve the race problem.
Yes.
Wherever you happen to be, using whatever is available to you to do so. That should be your assignment,
yes,
your reason for being.
The
reason for getting up in the morning and going to bed at night and then getting up the next morning if you're still here to do so. Why? Because any problem that you're going to have on this planet, if you're a person of color particularly, is going to be attached to the race problem.
Yes. And one of the
so that should be your priority. You should think about that all the time.
Yes, sir. And one of the things that she stated, which really made me look at it, because it's in line with what you always said and always say and still say, is that she mentioned that in South Africa, you are in a prison state. She said this. I heard her say this, that the people in South Africa are in a prison state. They are not free. And I thought that was ironic because you always make mention that we are in a state, we are in a prison system, and some are in greater confinement, which is just a subject in and of itself. At this 45-minute mark, Mr. Fuller, we always take time for you to discuss your publication, your book of books, the Word Guide, all information. So the floor is yours.
Well, you can just simply go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a method for ordering the Compensatory Counter-Racist Code under the main title, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, but it's all about what an individual person can do on a daily basis to fight against racism, but not only fight against racism, but do things that will lead toward, presumably, the production of justice. Justice has never been produced by anybody on this planet in recorded history. Justice is completely absent, because one thing, mathematically speaking, social mathematics, you can't have white supremacy and justice on the same planet at the same time. So justice does not exist. It's just a concept. But you keep that concept in mind as you try to get rid of all of the things that are going on the planet where people are being mistreated and people who need constructive help are not getting it, because that's what the compensatory definition for justice is. But it's addressed, the book, and it's an additional word guide. Both volumes are addressed to the individual victim of white supremacy. If you don't perceive yourself as being a victim of white supremacy, or if you don't think as a person of color that racism is a problem, then the book is not for you. And the book is highly selective, meaning what? You go through the book, and you can turn any page. You're supposed to find something useful on any page. And if you don't find anything useful on that page, you just turn the page till you find something useful. It's democratic in that regard. And you pick and choose what you think you can do that makes sense out of the book. They're just a book of suggestions based on, presumably, logic, because nothing in the book is supposed to be in this book if it's not in line with logic, the logic of the universe, cause and effect. So you use what you think you can use, and that you think you can't use, just ignore it. Sometimes people think that the book is rigid in the way that they'll say, well, this doesn't apply to me. People have actually talked to me and say, you have here on page such and such a thing. Well, this doesn't apply to anything that I know about. I mean, why is this in this book? Well, if it doesn't apply to you, then it doesn't apply to you. Find something that does apply to you in the form of a problem that you're trying to solve. It's just supposed to be a problem-solving book, because what is racism? It's a problem. So each individual should be trying to solve the problem wherever he or she is, anywhere on the planet. One of the first people I talked to said that there was nothing in the book that they could find of any use to him at all. It was a black male person. And I said, you didn't find anything in there? He said, no, you don't have nothing there, Fuller, that can help me do anything. I don't see you got nothing there. And I said, well, that's the way the book is supposed to work. If you don't find anything in it that you can use, then don't use it. Why use something that you don't need? The book is supposed to help a person to solve what his or her individual problem is. Because if you solve the problems of each person, this is the concept, you can solve the problems of all people.
Yes.
And this is how the book is structured.
Okay.
But you can get it by going to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com.
Okay. Before we move on to our next call or Gmail, have you heard any information about the Sinclair's group, Sinclair Media Group, a broadcasting group that basically gave a mandate to their news anchors or on-air personalities? It says Sinclair's owners in parts of the local broadcast, even in where you live at D.C. area, have conservative leanings, and critics said that the promotional videos, as published by Deadspin, look like corporate authoritarianism propaganda. They were basically telling them, what they could say, basically in support of the Trump agenda. Do you have any statements or comments about that? Have you heard of this or what?
About corporate?
Yeah, the corporate propaganda that is being purported by Deadspin, that the people at the Sinclair Media Group were basically providing a guideline as to what they would allow to be said over their airways, and the agenda fits the conservative Trump agenda.
I'm not quite sure I understand what all that means. But there are a lot of things I just simply broad brush, and that is in the code. I just simply say that if a white supremacist has anything to do with it, to the extent that a white supremacist has anything to do with anything, if a white person, and I'm not talking about all white people, but if a white person is a racist, that white person is dedicated to supporting racism. And they have hundreds of ways of doing that. So you should always suspect that anything that a suspected white supremacist is doing, it is to support racism, regardless of how it looks on the surface, regardless of what approach they take, how many black people are involved, how many black people are shaking hands and being patted on the back and being approved of, who are participating in it, and all like that. If one white supremacist has anything to do with it, look out.
Okay.
Because it means that poison is going to spread.
Yes, sir. Okay. Go to the Gmails here. This comes from Jane Lance. She said this: Mr. Fuller, how old were you when you first became aware of racism? How old were you when you first experienced racism, and how did you deal with it?
I don't remember the exact age, but being, it was just without any words being spoken. It was just that you kind of morphed into it. The signs were everywhere when I was around. Colored drinking water, white drinking water, colored theater, colored side of town, colored, you get on the bus, rear seat for colored. That's what it said. Okay, all you colored people, get to the back. You know where you belong. Bus driver will tell you that. All right? You can't sit there, boy. You know you can't sit there. Get up. Get up and get back there where you belong. And so, you hear that, and the white children get on. The white children sitting there on the front of the bus, and they're giggling. Because they think it's funny. So you just know that you are a person to be despised. You're a little child, but you are something. You are nothing. All right? You learn that real early. But now, if you ask me when I started thinking about writing a code to work against it, because I was always thinking about what the average slave would think about, just running away, trying to find paradise somewhere. Maybe there's some island somewhere here on Earth where I can go where this type of thing doesn't go on. So a lot of young black people grew up thinking that. Maybe if I can leave here, maybe if I can leave this town and go somewhere, and where the white folks are nice. Where they don't, just look at you with, like you shouldn't even be alive. You shouldn't be breathing. Because that's how they glared at you every day.
Yes, sir.
Even as a child, what are you doing over here? What are you doing over there? What are you up to? Why do you exist? What kind of thing are you? Get out of my sight. You could see it in their eyes. Not including the way that they would talk to you sometimes.
Yes, sir.
You just understood it at an early age. So I was always thinking that there was some place to go. All right? Because that's natural. You think, well, maybe every place isn't like this. Okay? But it was only when I started looking at it as a global system, I say, oh, okay. Okay. This is the kind of world I've been handed. Okay? And then, actually, it was a relief, in a way of speaking. There's no place to run, no place to hide. Not a hole in a cave somewhere. You can't hide from this. Without being miserable all the time, just trying to hide. And why should you hide? You came here on the planet just like everybody else. Why should you hide? Because you are said to be the wrong color. And you got to hide from everybody. You got to hide your color. You should have been born white. Sorry about that. Because if you weren't born white, you're supposed to be hounded and persecuted and beaten and killed and talked about. And people dream up jokes about you. When I was in the military, during the time, a white person would start telling a joke and then cut the joke off because they suddenly realized that every joke that they had was about black people.
Yes, sir.
They didn't have any other jokes. They'd start to tell a joke that's supposed to be about something else, but there'd be some black people involved, and it's going to wind up being a joke about black people, so they'd just cut off the joke right in the middle of the joke. I became aware of that. You're talking about awareness now. See, so I just said this is a whole global system.
Yes, sir.
It's designed to be against people who are classified as non-white. It's a royal system. So then I started thinking, well, now these are the cards we've been dealt. So put on your battle uniform, and your job, Fuller, is to fight against it. And once I took on that idea, I began to make more sense to my entire existence than I ever had before.
So were you in your 20s or 30s or what?
I was almost 30 years old.
Okay.
Because up till then, I was trying to run.
Okay.
Like a lot of people try to go here and go there, trying to look for a better place. Well, you can find some places that are better than others, but that's just like trying to find a better cell in the same prison.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good analogy. Okay. Let's do this one here. This comes from somebody in South Africa. He says this, Mr. Fuller, when is the book going to be available in South Africa? I tried to buy it online and do shipping, but it did not succeed. Do you know when the book is going to be available there?
The answer is no. I don't know when, but I do know that I have people for the first time starting the middle of last year feverishly trying to expedite just that. We've had even problems just with Canada and England lately. And we thought that was already resolved. I think the Canadian thing is still kind of up in the air, even after it was off to a start. But it is available in England. That's the only place overseas. But we're trying to get it everywhere. There are even some people who are looking to make connections where we can get it translated into Spanish and French, particularly. Spanish and French.
And French, okay.
Because a lot of black people throughout the world speak Spanish, or people of color.
Yes.
Spanish, and speak French. So we're trying to get it, we're working on that. And we're definitely trying to get it in what we call Africa, all over Africa. We think it's needed. We think the compensatory code, a structured approach, a codified approach to solving the race problem, should be worldwide because it's a worldwide problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, there you have it, right there. Whenever it gets up, but you have people working on that right now.
I have people working on it. That's the best I can say at this time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All righty. Well, when you hear that music, you know that the first hour of the compensatory concept is coming to an end. So let's do this. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the second hour of the compensatory concept here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
Thanks for listening to the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power. the world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
All righty. Welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com, the greatest radio station in the world. And you are literally listening to the greatest program in the world. That is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Now, I happen to be the co-host, Mr. Bobby, but Mr. Fuller is on the line live from Washington, D.C., and he is here to answer your questions or Gmails. We entitled this program The Follow-Up because there's been a lot of people that have written in and following and want Mr. Fuller to follow up on some questions. Now, you can call if you'd like, and we do have a call on the line, which we will get to in just a moment. 1-877-932-9766. That's the number to get in. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY at gmail.com. And you can do this. Go to the YouTube channel. When you do there, type in the word Talktainment. Hit the space bar and type in the word radio, then scroll down to Talktainment number 2 live on YouTube, and you're there. Just that simple. Hit the subscribe button and the like button, and you can do this also. If you miss any of the program, especially the first hour, you can go to Facebook.com/Talktainment, and you can view the entire program. And one more important thing. This second hour is sponsored by you. This is what I call the donate hour. And all we're asking is that if this program really means a lot to you and you use this program and you have Mr. Fuller to answer your questions, then why don't you think about submitting a donation? Doesn't matter how much it is. Just submit a donation. All the information for that is on the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage. There's a donate button there. All you have to do is hit that button, put in whatever the amount you want, and it is tax deductible. Now, we do have some reoccurring people: B.W. Gifts, LaShawna King, Eric Williams, Helen Nance, Don Mitchner, Jane Lance, Brother Muko, he gives, Terrence Morgan, Sharday Harris, Carrie Murphy, Cornelius Baker, and Donna Howard are just some of the listeners that have or are reoccurring donors. We'd like for you to be a part of that. So do that, and we can continue with the second hour of the Compensatory Concept. Someone asked me, do we get paid for this? No. Mr. Fuller doesn't receive any compensation for this, and neither do I. It's strictly a labor of love. But anyway, make sure you do buy Mr. Fuller's books. That's for sure. All right, let's go to the phone lines. What line am I on? Line number 1. Okay, line number 1, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
I have a quick question. First, a quick comment. I agree this is the greatest show ever. I will be donating today.
Thank you.
Changed my life.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. The greatest show on planet Earth and maybe in the universe, as Master Teacher Fuller would say. But my question is about the area of economics, and it's in regards to fasting, Master Teacher Fuller. Do you fast, meaning do you abstain from food at any point in time and for a length of time?
Do I fast?
Yes, sir.
No, but I probably should get into it. There's lots of things that I need to learn. That's why I always say I'm still learning. And I I tried different types of food for my metabolism, because I say each individual is tailored differently from every other individual in small ways that may count. So I don't believe that everything fits everybody the same way. That's why I call what I write the United Independent Compensatory System. That I have a great regard for the individual person, because I think that each individual person is given a certain assignment. So I have found that even some medicines work for some people, don't work for others. I found that out from experience. A medicine that's supposed to work for everybody may not work for everybody. What's medicine for one person may make the other person sicker than they already are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some doctors have found that out, or druggists, pharmacists and whatnot. And so it's the same way with food and procedures and whatnot, because people are different. Even in, the same so-called families, they're different. They're different heights, different weights. It might be a family of 8 people, and they say that, Sheila is the smartest one in the family. In fact, she's smarter than a whole lot of people in a whole lot of families. But it seems like everybody else in this family is just mediocre. I mean, we just barely get by when it comes to the smart department. But Sheila, she's the brains of the family, and she's the 4th child out of 8 children. See, so it's the same way with foods. What fits one person may or may not fit another person.
Mm-hmm.
Fasting may help one person and may cause another person to become emaciated. So I try to look into all these things on an individual level and see what works best for me.
Okay. All right. Thank you, brother, for your call. Speaking about that, Mr. Fuller, on drugs and so forth, according to a report by the NIH, which is the National Institutes of Health, commissioned by Richard Nixon back in 1971, I believe, they came up with this concerning cannabis oil in 1974, that cannabis oil cures 34 cancers. Now, they have been knowing this all this long. And in 2014, under the Freedom of Information Act, this information was finally released to the general public. So they sat on it for 41 years, knowing that cannabis oil can cure, and I have the papers at home, 34 cancers. Now, my question to you, Mr. Fuller, if they knew this, why would the white supremacists do this if they know for a fact, and it is proven, documented, that cannabis oil cures 34 cancers, and maybe more, but at least 34? Why would they do something like that? Why would they hide that information or keep it hidden at least for 41 years?
Anything that a white supremacist does, you must assume that they are doing it to give greater strength to the system of white supremacy. And it doesn't make any difference, even if it looks like they're doing something just the opposite. Always suspect, until proven differently over a long period of time or whatever, which means the end of racism. Always suspect that any move that the white supremacists make is to give strength to the system of white supremacy, no matter how it looks on the surface. That's just an automatic assumption. I mean, that's rock solid code. You don't deviate from that.
Mm-hmm.
You may not know. You'll be puzzled most of the time, because they operate like magicians, because they are great magicians. They're masters of computer science and this type of thing. And you walking around with something in your hand. The white supremacists have a lot to do with that. All right, where you get information and all this.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that a white supremacist does, regardless of how it looks to the victim on the surface, always suspect. Here we go again. What are they up to now?
Okay.
That should always be your position.
Yes, sir.
Here we go again.
Here we go again.
What are they up to now?
Okay.
You do that until maybe one of these days they just have a change of mind, but don't depend on it, and just say, hey, you know what? Let's just get rid of this racism business altogether.
Right.
You know, let's really seriously try
Okay.
the system of justice.
Okay.
And they can do that. They can do that, and overnight, racism will be gone. I mean, people will be saying, racism, what's that? I mean, they can do it overnight.
Installing a system of justice. Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. All right. Before I move on to the next question, now, being that the information was released in 2014, in your opinion, in your humble opinion, based on what you just heard, would that make cancer a business instead of what is purported as it being a disease?
It could be. I mean, we don't know. I mean, I don't know. Usually we find out what the white supremacists are up to in one specific area of activity years after they have started doing it.
Okay.
Or really, I mean, it's not a real time frame when they want us to know. We usually don't find out until they want us to know anything.
Okay. Yes, sir.
They have all kinds of things in their scientific library. Yes, laboratories.
Okay. Okay.
And, you know, you assume that all the time. I mean, they have cures for diseases that they have invented. I mean, you know, and when they get ready, they just say, well, we don't need that disease anymore. We've come up with a couple of more. So we'll just do away with that.
Good point. Okay, right. I got you on that one. Maybe that's why it was released in 2014. What line am I on here? Line number one? Line number one, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question, please?
Good morning, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby. It's Brother Muko in Baltimore.
Hey,
we'll be holding compensatory constructive action discussions every Saturday, 12 noon. We're going to be on St. Louis Drive across from Lake Clifton High School this weekend, discussing ways to dismantle racism, white supremacy. My question for Mr. Fuller today. Mr. Fuller, we are indeed in a race war. Can you please expound for my care unit in Baltimore the importance of not arguing amongst non-white people?
Super, super, super important. That's got to stop. I mean, like this minute, everywhere throughout the world. Arguments should be something that black people don't do. We don't have arguments. We don't argue with anybody. We have what? Conversations, meaning I give opinions. You know, you give your opinion, I give mine. But arguing about it, shouting, cursing, falling out, that should be something that is completely passé worldwide as of this very minute. In fact, white people throughout the world should be saying, well, there's one thing that you won't hear from a black person ever, and that is an argument. Black people don't argue. They have conversations. Their conversations are always questions and answers. I mean, they ask each other questions, and they get answers from each other, and whatever the questions are, whatever the answers are, that's it. I mean, but they don't argue about the questions, and they don't argue about the answers.
Why?
It's just all questions and answers. That's the way they conduct themselves. See, now, we white people, you know, we will argue and fuss, and, you know, if the argument gets out of hand, we fight, you know, invite each other outside the bar and have a fist fight. Black people don't do any of that. Black people do not argue about anything. That's a part of their code. I mean, they definitely, if it looks like they're headed toward an argument, now this is the procedure according to the code.
Okay.
If it looks like you're headed toward an argument, there's a specific thing that you say. It's in the code book. You say, Mr. Bryant, I will talk to you at some other time. And Mr. Bryant is supposed to say the same thing. Mr. Wilson, I will talk to you at some other time. Because it means you don't know how to handle this conversation without arguing. That's what that means. The minute you get that signal, I mean, you start thinking, this thing, hey, we're sliding into an argument. No, because behind an argument becomes name calling. Behind name calling becomes cursing, then shouting,
yes,
and then fighting,
yes,
and then killing. See, that's the recipe, and we do this all the time. We're locked into it, but we can stop it right this minute. This is something you can stop doing today. You say, hey, I don't have arguments. I don't argue with anybody, white or non-white, about anything.
Okay.
I'll have a conversation, but I don't have arguments. And the way to do it mechanically, the procedure is stay in the question lane. See, when you ask somebody a question, it everything kind of gets quiet for a moment. Everything slows down because now people have to think rather than just shouting and screaming. You just ask the person, politely. Always, lower your voice and then start asking questions. Why? Because the formula for solving any problem, because apparently if you have an argument, there's a problem.
Yes.
So the formula for solving any problem, the procedure is what? Through the process of questions and answers. Now, if for some reason it seems like this isn't working, you just simply break contact. That's the key. And simply bow out by saying, Miss Green, Miss Morgan, with whatever the name is, I will talk to you at some other time because right now, it appears that this is not the best time to have this discussion. All right? And the other person will agree.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Try to get the person to agree that you'll talk about this some other time when you're at not a shouting level or an argumentative level.
Okay.
We'll discuss this some. But most of the time, simply by the process of everybody lowering their voices and get into the question and answer mode. Nothing but questions and answers. Stay away from making any statements. And definitely don't make any accusations. That's important. Yeah. Don't accuse anybody of doing anything. Just ask the person. Rather than say, you did such a thing, say, did you do such and such a thing?
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Ask.
That's a difference altogether.
Yes.
That's a huge difference. Miss Morgan, did you put those papers on the desk? Rather than, Miss Morgan, you put those papers on the desk. And you know they're not supposed to be over there in that desk because they'll wind up in the wrong file. Now, you know that this, Miss Morgan, did you put this stack of papers on this desk where they are now? Did you do that? And then if Miss Morgan says yes, then you say, well, why did you do it? Because I thought that that's where they should be.
Still questioning.
All right, you're still in the question mode.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Say, well, did you ask someone where they should be? No, I just thought that they're, well, now you can probably make a statement. You can venture, if it doesn't lead to an argument. Well, from now on, when you finish your work, don't put it on this desk.
Okay.
Ask Mrs. Greenleaf where the papers go.
But stay in the question lane.
Right.
Okay.
But mostly stay in the question lane.
Okay.
That's in an office, in a factory, in a warehouse, on a street corner, in a bar. Just ask questions.
Okay.
All right. This causes people to think. People slow down and start thinking when a question is on the table. All right.
All right.
And stick to the question.
All right. Thank you, Brother Muko. Appreciate your
y'all have a constructive. Okay, y'all have a constructive day.
Right.
Thanks.
And appreciate your donations.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I forgot what I was going to ask you about that. Okay. Well, anyway, maybe it'll come back to me. Let's do this here. Mr. Fuller, this is from Glenda. She says, Mr. Fuller, have you seen the news report about the Oregon lesbian couple who drove their vehicle off a cliff in California, killing all in the vehicle? Why are racist suspects allowed to adopt black children? Might they have adopted these children for purpose, and she has that in capital letters, of mistreating them? What can we do to solve this problem?
Point it out. That's what I did in the code book. anytime suspected racists, quote, unquote, adopt anything, a person or whatever, anything that a racist does is to do what? Support racism, make racism stronger. So you have, a couple of white women who will go all the way overseas and go through a whole bunch of paperwork, and all kind of bureaucracies and whatnot to get a couple of, Vietnamese so-called people of color, all right, or somebody from Kenya, get a little girl from Kenya, a couple of white guys adopt a little girl from Kenya, say this is going to be our daughter, all right, you immediately say, hey, these are racist suspects big time. I mean, over the top big time. They're on the suspect list right way up at the top, right through the roof. I mean, why? Because put it in question mode. Wait a minute. You got black people right here. They went all the way to Kenya? Oh, this is some type of plan. Man, is this little black girl in for a ride like you wouldn't believe? All right? You have to believe that. Why? Because we're in the system of white supremacy.
Yes.
And so you ask, why would they be doing this? Okay? I mean, making plane trips expensive.
Yeah.
Two white men now adopting a young black girl from a village in Kenya. Wow. Man. I mean, that's in your face.
Well,
as far as now, it may be, hey, a golden opportunity for the girl. It may be. But I don't think so, and nobody on the planet should think so.
Well, according to compensatory logic, where we would have to ask in this particular case, the Oregon couple, why they did that, we can't, because they died also. They killed themselves also. Why would you adopt these black kids and then plunge them off a cliff? I don't know if that question could.
Oh, the people kill themselves. I mean,
along with the kids.
Oh well, they might have thought that their assignment. See, because white supremacists always got a plan, wasn't working too well. I mean, and they had a falling out about it or something like that. I mean, they make mistakes, but not often. See, white supremacists do make mistakes, and we are supposed to always, hope that they make mistakes in trying to make the system of white supremacy stronger. This is a war. So in a war, people make mistakes, all right, and to their own detriment. So you can just chalk that up to, that would be my suspicion, that they made a mistake and somewhere along the way, something didn't work out quite the way that they had planned. That happens. So they decided just to scrap the whole project.
Wow.
All right.
You could be right about that. Wow. TalkTainmentRadio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. And here's one I'm going to promote, and that's Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby, heard every other Tuesday exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Now, the next show is April the 17th, and we will feature in our Tell Me Something Good segment Mrs. Nikki Lowry Dawkins. She is the assistant women's basketball coach of the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers. She will be our guest in that second segment that we have entitled Tell Me Something Good, along with all the other latest sports news that we have. Anyway, that show, Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby, and other shows are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com. All you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, and there is a list of the programs and the bios that we have there, and all the information that you need to do, including this program right here, the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. And as I blend those two together, when you go to the compensatory concept, there's a button on there called the donate button. Hit that button for the second hour of this. You wanted it, we wanted to do it, and here it is. And we thank you, for your contributions for doing that. We're not going to tell you how much to give on that. You can give whatever amount that you want to, but please hit that button so we can continue to do this wonderful program, the greatest program that you've ever heard on the greatest radio that you've ever heard. That's just TalkTainmentRadio.com. Thank you to Brian Goodspeed, Robert Slade, Yvonne Holly, Patrick Smith, Jean Luma, Anita Taylor, Jane Lance, Brother Muko, thank you, Don Mister, Helen Lance, Eric Williams, LaShawna King, and my brother down in Houston, Texas, B.W. Gibbs. Thank you, Brother Bartholomew. All that and more. And if you want your name called, and I would love to do that, go ahead and hit that share button. All this from TalkTainmentRadio.com, radio, the way it should be heard. Mr. Fuller, here's a Gmail. It says, this comes from Brother Victor. He says, Mr. Bobby, can you please ask Mr. Fuller these questions? If the weakness of the system of white supremacy is wickedness, how do the victims contribute to the strength of the system of white supremacy?
If the what?
He says, if the weakness of the system of white supremacy is wickedness, how do the victims contribute to the strength of the system of white supremacy racism?
Just not being aware. When someone is doing something against you that's harmful to you, and they are doing it in a way that you are not aware of what the person is doing, that's how that happens. The white supremacists are the masters of deception.
Okay.
They know how to do all sorts of things to make things look appealing. They can get people to walk right into a trap real easy. I mean, they're the greatest trapsters that the world has ever experienced. I mean, they know how to just, have people willingly do things that are not in their best interests. I mean, for just a thing like simple things like, and they do a lot of it themselves. See, I mean, they don't mind. They do percentages like any business does. So they figured out, well, tobacco was a wonderful thing, all right, and that people should smoke, okay? And for years, I mean, you were considered sophisticated if you smoked a pipe, all right? I mean, that's real sophisticated. You smoked a cigar, that means that you were big time, okay? When you get into the big money. I mean, just a little bit of propaganda, that's all that is. If you're just the average person, you smoke a cigarette, okay? But now if you're getting into the big time, a big brown or black cigar sticking out of your mouth, I mean, you automatically got to have some boxes of those.
Okay.
Okay? I mean, you sit behind a big polished desk. Mm-hmm. So that's just one thing. But they're that way about everything.
Everything.
They know how to make things feel, seem to be appealing.
Okay.
Drink this type of beverage. Drink this type of drink, alcoholic beverage and whatnot.
All right.
You'll be somebody.
Okay.
All right? And right now, I just read an article as of yesterday that was what? On the reservations. They're having an opium problem, opioid, I understand.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I mean, you can look it up probably in the Washington Post. There's an article about it on one of the pages. I think it's page A12. I mean, where a drug maker takes new tack in Cherokee opioid crisis.
Wow.
Now, this is 2018.
Yes, sir.
And the Cherokee Indians are blaming the government. All right? Well, what government? Well, it's only one government on the planet, and that is the system of white supremacists.
Yeah.
So that's who I would blame if that thing called opioid is harmful to non-white people. Now, I understand it's harmful for anybody who takes it.
Okay.
But the white supremacists use a lot of it themselves. I mean, because they know that when you deceive someone, you can't really deceive somebody into doing something unless you do a little bit of it yourself.
Okay, we got to leave it there. TalkTameRadio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on 94.1 WGRN. Podcasts all available. Download the TalkTameRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio, the way it should be heard. Stay right there. A follow-up question and maybe a phone call. All that and more coming up next on TalkTameRadio.com.
For the best home fragrance and beauty products, shop Ash Kickin online.
That's ASHKICKIN.
Made with 100% natural quality ingredients and handcrafted with your family in mind, Ash Kickin products are better than those other guys. Ash Kickin candles, incense, body butter, face moisturizer, and hair moisturizer are priced just right, and you can get yours at 10% off with coupon code TALK17. Support this 100% black-owned business and get your home and body smelling and feeling all right.
That's ASHKICKIN.
Shop Ash Kickin online at www.ashkickin.com.
Are you ready for a high school that allows you to work at a place that is right for you? Are you ready to earn a certification in healthcare, business, or manufacturing while achieving your high school diploma? Then you are ready for Life Skills High School, a free public school option for high school students 16 to 21 years old. Learn more about your free high school educational options at lifeskillshs.org or call them at 1-800-888-7992. Life Skills High School, education that fits your life.
Robe is an intriguing, riveting, mysterious novel written on forgiveness by Renee Smith. Order your copy today at Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. That's The Robe by Renee Smith.
Every year, June marks the beginning of two busy seasons, summer and wedding season. If you are legally changing your name, you need to apply for a replacement Social Security card reflecting your new name. This is easier to fix now when you first change your name than years from now when you retire. So go to our website at www.socialsecurity.gov/SS number or call us at 1-800-772-1213, TTY 1-800-325-0778 to find out what specific documents you need to change your name and apply for a replacement card.
If you or someone you know is abusing drugs and or alcohol and want to stop the abuse, contact APDS at 1409 East Livingston Avenue. Office hours are 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily and 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday. APDS is certified by the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and primarily funded through the Adam H. Board. Fees are based on your income and Medicaid is always accepted. For more information, call 614-253-4448.
This is Al Edmondson, owner of a Cut Above the Rest barbershop. I'm calling on all barbers and beauticians. It's time for us to unite as one. We can serve our communities better together. Join the Ohio Black Barber Beauty Network. For more information, visit www.obbn.org or call 614-427-3226 to get more information. Be the change that you want to see in your community. Join our network.
I've got the water, energy bars, and camera. I think we're set for the hike.
Almost. We need to protect our skin. Don't forget your wide-brimmed hat and sunscreen.
All right. I've got the hat. I've got SPF 30. Will that work?
Yeah, anything 15 or higher is good. Just make sure it says broad spectrum.
Great. Got it. I am not getting burned again. Let's go.
Learn more at cdc.gov/cancer.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTameRadio.com.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Go ahead. Make my day.
You got the power.
Alrighty, TalkTameRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. I am Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And our on topic today is it's really called the follow-up. So go ahead and you can call back now at 1-877-932-9766 and we'll try to get you on. Just want to say thank you to Terrence Morgan, Junius Myers, Anthony McKeon over in England, thank you. Robert Wade, Alexandria Brown Pitts, thank you. Tanya Potts, Carolyn Jackson, and Hugh Haywood for your donations to the second hour of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, a Root Dog just wrote in and said regarding the white female couple that adopted black children and allegedly drove off the cliff, we also have to consider other white supremacist suspects may have made it look like they committed suicide murder. Some people, mass media, will stay on white code when reporting or speaking about this incident. The other white supremacist suspects may be upset with the white female couple for going off white code and adopting black children. That might be something to consider, Mr. Fuller. What do you think?
Sure. The white supremacists, like in any criminal enterprise, and everybody who has been in a criminal enterprise, like drugs and whatnot, understand there are huge arguments that come up between people who are doing something they shouldn't be doing anyway.
Yeah.
And they fight and kill each other. I mean, they have so-called civil wars. The white supremacists themselves call them that. They'll say, hey, this is my brother. I mean, you know, and we're pledged to be with each other in this enterprise of slavery and whatnot, and we're going to enslave all these people. But, I mean, I don't like the way my brother's going about doing it.
Yes.
I mean, you know, it's like Don Corleone talking about Fredo.
Yes.
Fredo, I mean, you can't handle things. I mean,
you mean Fredo?
Yes,
yeah,
right. In the movie Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
You're incompetent. And Fredo is saying, I can handle things. I'm smart. I mean, you know, I'm not stupid like everybody says. And Michael, the other brother, both of them in the same family, got the same mother. They say, Fredo, you know, I'm through with you. You're not my brother anymore. All right? In fact, as it turned out in the movie line, and this has actually happened, things like that, similar to that, he had his own brother killed. Now, going back to the Roman Empire, when they were conquering everybody and whatnot, Romans were killing each other in the royal family. I mean, there's all kind of records of that, usually by poisoning one. One poison. I think that the Empress Livia poisoned her husband, Caesar Augustus, if I remember correctly.
Right.
You know, as depicted in a series called I, Claudius.
Yeah, you're right.
Right. See, so they do this all the time. But that doesn't mean that when they kill each other, that means that black people are going to be, quote, unquote, liberated from racism.
Right.
No.
Right.
That just means they're having a dispute about how they're going to handle the black people up in Harlem.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
And they kill each other about it sometimes.
They sure do.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Root Dog, because that did bring out something. It could have been made to look like that they ran off the cliff. That's a good point. That is a good point, because we never know who they did. What line am I on now? Line number 1? Okay. Line number 1, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby. It's great to see you guys up and running. The PayPal, the YouTube, that's very nice. I like that. You also have a chat, a YouTube chat that you can focus on, too. They ask questions in the chat.
Okay.
So you can also go to the Gmail and the chat. Now, I have a few questions to Mr. Fuller. Can you explain to the public or to the listeners why blacks are not qualified to label a suspected white supremacist a racist? And also...
Wait a minute. Let Mr. Fuller answer that one first before we go ahead.
Can you answer that just concisely?
Okay.
Because I know you have limited time.
Okay.
Well, black people are not qualified to say that a white person is a racist. You can say a white person, I say it all the time. I said it on the air today. Any white person who is able to be a racist in the system of white supremacy should be suspected of being one. And the key term here is suspected, racist suspect. But you never say that a white person is a racist if you're a person of color. Why? For a very logical reason. Everything in counter-racist science is supposed to be based on logic, because that's what science is. You have no way of proving it. If you say that a white person is a racist and you are a person, you are a black person, a person of color, black, brown, red, yellow, and you say openly, publicly, that a white person is a racist, and that white person has not said that he or she is a racist, he or she has not identified him or herself as a racist, then if some white person says, oh, you call that person a racist, oh, with your black self, you call that person a racist, okay, yeah, that's name calling, all right, and that's slander, and you can get that person in trouble by saying that that person is a racist. So since you have taken it on yourself to identify that person who is white with your black self as a racist, now we're going to haul you into a court and you prove that this white person is a racist. And so far, that has not worked for the non-white person, person who did that. It doesn't work because you cannot prove it. There's no way to prove it. You have to get a white person to come behind you and say, I agree with this black person, that this white person is a racist. Now, that's not you proving anything. That's that white person proving it.
Okay.
That goes to show you the power of white supremacy.
What's your other question?
You do have a situation with the OJ case where Johnny Cochran, I guess he alluded that Furman was a racist. But I understand what you're saying, because it seems like the common denominator, it always comes down to white people approving what's being said. I got you.
Okay.
I got it. I got it. Click.
Now, I just want to say this in connection with that, since he mentioned the Johnny Cochran case. If you followed that trial, Johnny Cochran, when he was making all those bold opening statements, he was making them alone in there. Then all of a sudden, and then for days afterwards, it seemed like more and more white lawyers start coming in support of Johnny Cochran. I mean, if I remember correctly. I mean, they started showing up one by one, two by two. And so Johnny Cochran had a lot going for him. Why? Because he had other white people on board.
Go ahead, Carl.
Question quickly. I know you're short for time. Also, why isn't your book available in digital format, and are you opposed to a distributor like Amazon or any digital distributor sharing in profit?
No, and no one is supposed to be doing that. No one is supposed to be doing that.
No. You misunderstood me.
Okay, go ahead.
What I'm saying is, are you? Why isn't your book available by your team, like your team that sets up your business situation with your book, to make it available in digital format? And are you opposed to Amazon or any other distributor sharing in that profit? Because your team would have to contact Amazon to create the ebook, so on and so forth, so it could be spread out to Africa, London, Europe, Asia.
Well, the people who are handling the book right now, they are in the process of looking into all of that. And,
yes,
you know,
I've been listening since 2014.
I've been told
something has to evolve, Mr. Fuller. Not to be critical, something has to evolve, because it's a lot of people out here with your message, just similar to your message, and these people can help you out. I'm just an individual that just tunes in from time to time, and I'm like, that's still a problem. So that's what I suggest. That's just a suggestion. I don't want to take up all of your time, but that's a suggestion, just like that PayPal and the YouTube. I want to see this flourish. So that's something your team should look into. E-books. I mean, Amazon, or they would take some of the profit, but it's a minimum amount. You know, so look into that. Have your team look into that.
Yes, in response to your remarks, this has already been considered and is now being considered. All of these things, all of the options, because the book won't be effective unless it is effective. I understand that fully, but the people who are doing this, they are working on it now, and they're considering the e-books and all other venues that can be used, and how best to go about doing it. That's what's going on right now as we speak. But
I wish it much.
But I don't. I know. I would like to see it accelerated, but I'm only working with a small group of people, and like I said, I have always kind of steered clear of getting too many of suspected racists involved to the extent that they would be involved, because they are involved. All right, I try to minimize that. All right, to the extent that, because I know that there are people also who are trying to contaminate the work, and that the white supremacists, there are some black people who are doing it, and for profit, which I understand that, but there are also some white supremacists who have already figured out how they're going to undermine my message the minute that I get sick. All right. And then you'll hear all kinds of things going all kinds of ways. Yeah. That's why I try to get the book out in basic form and try to keep it tight at this point, like I do, and try to control it as best I can, knowing full well what's going to happen later. Because the white supremacists are going to say, oh, Fuller didn't mean this. He didn't mean that. What he meant was this. Yeah. And they'll pay some black people to stand up and say all of that. Yeah, Next thing you know, everything that I have worked for and tried to do and all like that will all be distorted. Because the white supremacists do this with everybody of any consequence.
All righty. Thank you, caller. That was an excellent call, and thank you for those were some excellent questions, too. Mr. Fuller, since we're on here, then you might as well go ahead on and discuss how we can get that book and the Word Guide, which I have my copies right here. But how can the general public get that?
You can go to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. And I haven't looked at my own site recently, but from what I understand, everything is there, telling you what's going on and whatnot, and how to get the main thing, how to get the basic textbook, the revised expanded edition that came out in 2016, and also the Word Guide that preceded the revised expanded edition, revised and expanded up from 1984. All right, came out in 2016, and then there's a Word Guide that came out in 2010, and it says so on the cover, and that is an extension of the basic book. Some people get both volumes because it's really one book, but I couldn't crowd it all into one book. I would have liked that, definitely. That was my intention, but it would have been too thick to carry around. So I have these two volumes, but the basic volume is what most people get. Go to producejustice.com, producejustice.com, because that's the object, that's the ultimate purpose for getting rid of racism, is to replace it with something called justice. And this book is supposed to help you to do both as an individual person. Go to producejustice.com, and the method for ordering is there.
All righty. Okay, you're listening to the greatest radio program in the history of radio, and I really mean that. This is a great opportunity on the world's greatest station, that is TalkTameRadio.com. The greatest program is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. You are getting unadulterated truth. We are blessed at this very moment to be able to do this and to be able to have you hear it. That's why we call it the greatest. All righty. This is a Gmail from Fred. He says this, Mr. Fuller. He said, Mr. Fuller, you talk about how it's pedophilia when whites and blacks have intercourse, and I get it. But when I try to explain this to black females using your prison analogy, they don't want to hear it. It's like they want to be abused, even knowing these people have no sexual restrictions, bestiality. Why is it so hard for them to get that? I mean, it's not rocket science.
Well, the reason why is you can't confine it just to black females. It's people in general. If everybody understood white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, this problem would be over, because the white supremacists couldn't stand that kind of weight. But, you know, most people look at white supremacy. First of all, who is this guy Neely Fuller talking about some white supremacy? Every now and then you run into some white people who will beat up on you or kill you or deny you a job. But, I mean, you know, that's not the whole world. I mean, you know, he's making that up. Neely Fuller, I mean, you know, he's an old guy, I mean, from the back of the bus, and he has become delusional. He thinks that this, you know, all these white folks and whatnot are ganging up on him and whatnot. I mean, you know, I can understand the old dude, I mean, looking at it that way. You know, I mean, you know, I understand when people say these things, but it ain't really like that, man. Man, I got white women, I mean, you know, I work with white guys. They're some of the dumbest people in the world, man. I mean, you know, I have to tell them things all the time. I have to straighten them out. And there are a lot of black people who talk like that and who really believe that and all like that. But I'm saying, you don't try to convince. I always say part of the code is you don't, the counter-racist code should not be preached, and it certainly shouldn't be, you try to indoctrinate people. You just simply lay it out there and say, this is the way I see it. Now, if you don't see it that way, tell me the way that you see it, and then act accordingly.
Okay.
Because if what's in the code is true, they're going to find out. And who is going to make them find out? Not another black person, the white supremacists themselves. They're the best teachers in the world to black people of what their place is.
Yes.
All right? There's a lot of black people who've said, well, I don't believe nothing that you're talking about, man. I ain't seen no evidence. Man, you way off base, man. I mean, where have you been? You must have been on another planet. I don't know where you've been, but the kind of world that I've been in, I mean, it don't nowhere match what you're talking about, Fuller.
Right.
I mean, people have told me that on a personal level, you know, and I don't argue. See, the code says don't argue. Don't try to convince. Just say, well, this is my view, and this is the way I see it. Now, you know, if you can come back and show me where it's different, then I'll go and take a look, and I'll agree with you. I mean, don't run from the truth. I mean, even if you've been incorrect about everything like forever, don't run from the truth.
Yes.
You know, I won't run from it. If somebody can show me where I don't know what I'm talking about anything, I'll say, yeah, I got that incorrect.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to go back and get on Talktainment Radio right now and say, hey, page 32, hey, forget that, because that ain't true.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, but so far, even in looking for it, see, Neely Fuller has done this. I've gone out and tried to prove myself to be in error, but I get disappointed every time.
Every time.
Every time. I mean, I have to walk away and say, man, I thought I found a crack in my own premise. I thought I found something in error, but doggone it, I scratched just a little deeper, and there it was again. Same old story. Racism right there in my face.
Right there.
Right.
I got a message from one of my dog team members. I say that affectionately. I have a few people who are on there, but this is anyway, here's a message. It says, greetings again, Mr. Bobby. He says, concerning the digital format of the code, he says this: one of the potential downsides of putting the book out in digital format, it will be easy to manipulate the content without the author's knowledge. By having a physical book, it is far more difficult to change the content of the code.
I have been told that, and that's one of the reasons I haven't already done it.
Yes. Well, one of my dog team members just sent it back to me. Thank you, dog. Just to let it know. That's why you don't have it in there, because even though it can reach a lot of people, there is the downside. And that downside is that, Mr. Fuller, your words can be distorted into something that you did not say. And that's bad. That's real bad. Speaking about bad, you always make mention of the Shawshank Redemption, and you always make mention of this particular character, Andy Dufresne. And you've mentioned even on this show several times, always stay in the question mode. And the question is, did Andy Dufresne in the movie The Shawshank Redemption ask questions?
Well, he very seldom said anything.
Yes, that's right.
But like when he sat at the table in the mess hall, they were there having dinner, and he asked about Brooks. That was a question.
Okay, all right.
When they were talking about music and the harmonica playing and whatnot, he had given Red a harmonica to play as a gift. And Red said, well, I haven't played my harmonica because it doesn't make much sense to play it in here. And so Andy made a statement, said, it makes more sense in here than it does anywhere, because it reminds you of there are other places, other things, other than four walls that you're behind. And so Red told him, said, yeah, well, that kind of thinking about thinking outside of where you are, that'll drive you crazy.
Okay.
And then Andy asked a question, because he said, well, you got to have hope. See, Andy kept talking about hope, using that word, like Martin Luther King used the word hope a lot, all right? He said, well, music can sometimes give you hope, to keep you, make you keep going. See, that's what hope does.
Yes, sir.
Hope makes you keep going.
Okay.
And he said, well, hope will drive a man crazy. That's what Red said. And he said, then he asked the question, like Brooks hadn't? See, because Brooks hadn't gave up hope, and he committed suicide.
He committed suicide. He sure did. Okay. Last question for this. Mr. Fuller, in your, this comes from Victor, in your book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept has stated that all victims of the practitioners of white supremacy are all weak and fearful. Mr. Fuller, how can non-white people globally practice true self-respect when they are deceived by white supremacists through their thought, speech, and actions in all area of people activity?
Well, first of all, respect has that word doesn't have a definition that makes sense. If it ever did, the way that it is used, because, and if it does make sense, people usually associate it with pride or how other people feel about you or something like that. That's why black people kill each other sometimes, talking about, you disrespected me.
Yes, I've heard that. Mm-hmm.
And the code says, what is respect? What is this thing called respect? Respect is refusing to tell yourself a lie. That's what the code says. That's the definition. Hold on to that definition. Don't lie to yourself. You might be forced to lie to somebody else at gunpoint.
But never lie to yourself.
Don't ever tell yourself a lie and then start believing the lie that you told yourself.
Wow.
Because when you do that, you can't do anything that makes sense from then on.
I like
and
that.
Black people have a tendency, many black people have a tendency to lie to themselves.
Don't ever lie to yourself. Wow, we got to leave it there until next week. Mr. Fuller, thank you. Talk to him at radio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.